Thank you for joining me at the Masters. Tim Watson here. Today I'm joined by Master Evandro Schwalbach. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored.
Oh, thank you for joining me. I'm excited to get a chance to talk to you. We've met a few times in passing, but never got a chance to talk like we're going to do today. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, me too. Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much for this.
Yeah, you just mentioned that you got a chance. You did the virtual training today with Master Inoshida. How was that?
That was awesome. I mean, I really enjoy these sessions. I mean, it started at during the pandemic, and obviously it wasn't the same thing as going on the floor and actually breaking a sweat and doing some exercise, because there's a lot of talking in these sessions. But the knowledge, and the things that you just receive, and sometimes you kind of think about certain things and the answers are right there, when people are explaining these things. I mean, I really like it. I mean, it's more about training the mind, than the physical body, So I think it's a nice thing to have. I hope this carries on with that.
Have you or did you, Region 14, I know you're pretty spread out with some of the dojangs. Did you use some of those training sessions like with COVID, or do you still use any of the virtual sessions to connect with your instructors in your region?
Yes, I think it was kind of something that we never thought about it that would be acceptable as a training methodology until we had the pandemic, and then we came together like that, and we started training like that, and then we carry on until now, because we are in different countries and it's very expensive for us to get together. Our championship happens once every 2 years, and that's when we get together. So I think yeah, it's better than not meeting up, so we're still using it. We have twice a year regional Dan clinics, and then we've now started with judging clinics and started meeting virtually as well. So I think it's a tool that it's really working for our region because of the different countries.
Yeah, I think some, in the US here, we have quite a few regions in our country, and I guess some people would probably be surprised to know that other regions like yours, Region 14, how many countries are in your region?
Well, at the moment, active countries in Region 14 is the whole of Africa, which is like, that's like saying the whole of US is one region. It's just crazy. It's okay because we don't have a lot of countries that are doing tongue sudo. So at the moment it's South Africa, Mozambique, Botswana, Seychelles, 4. And then during the pandemic, somebody from Mauritania, Mr. Bobali, wanted to join our association. So we did training virtually and did a test, a black belt test for his conversion. He came from a Japanese style. So we have 5 countries, and we still kind of exploring other countries in the north of Mozambique who contact us that they want to be part of our organization. So yeah, we're kind of growing in our region, and at some point we have to readdress the issue of the disconnection, one region from the south of Africa all the way to the north of Africa.
Right.
Interesting at the moment.
Yeah, right. So talking about South Africa, we'll go back a little bit. Can you talk about how you got your start in the martial arts and what led you to being a part of the World Tongue Sudo Association?
Okay, so I'm originally from Mozambique. I was born in Mozambique and lived there all my life, until in my 20s. 2004 was when I moved to Cape Town in South Africa. So I started martial arts when I was 15 in Mozambique, and I started doing Taekwondo. And that lasted just, not more than a year or less than a year. And then my Taekwondo instructor had to relocate, had to move elsewhere, and the space where we're renting, basically a Tang Soo Do instructor who was not my main instructor just opened a class there, and I joined that one because I liked martial arts and I wanted to continue with something, and I think he got me at the he showed me the student manual and he said Chuck Norris also trained in this style, and I was like, no way, really? Well, this is the style that I must do then. And then he got me at that, and then I started joining, and yeah, never stopped since then.
Excellent. That trick doesn't work as well anymore.
It doesn't. No.
He's really just known as like the Chuck Norris jokes. It gets some of the parents if they're closer to my age, but we have a picture on the wall still of him and Grandmaster Shin in California from years ago. Some people are like, oh, that's cool, but then most people, it's like they don't know who he is anymore.
Yeah. Doesn't work. I agree with you.
What was the training like when you? How old were you? You said you were 15 when you started in Taekwondo.
Correct, sir.
What was the training like back in the 90s? Was it different from what it is now?
Yeah, it was very different. And in Mozambique, it was even more different. And I can really see the difference between Mozambique and South Africa even now. Back then we trained 3 or 4 times a week, or 5 times, and it was 1.5-hour classes. They were very hard, and there was lots of fighting, lots of sparring all the time. At the end of each class, we would do sparring all the time. I still remember the time where my instructor came and said, well, this is when I was in Tang Soo Do already. My instructor came and said, well, worldwide, people are training twice a week. So we're going to change from 3 times a week to 2 times a week. And it was just crazy because the amount of hours that you put in just got reduced by, almost half in 1 year, but we were still training 1.5 hours to 2 hours. It was really different. And the other thing which was quite nice, was that we didn't have a lot of equipment. So a lot of the stuff that we would do, we didn't have mats, so we would roll on floors. Our training hall didn't really have all the windows, all the glass, some of it was missing. Not that it was a problem, because in Mozambique, it doesn't really, we don't really have winter there, so we don't have to worry about that. But just the environment was different. The floor was not appropriate, but it made us tough. It made us kind of appreciate. Nowadays, we kind of look back and we appreciate that. And then another interesting thing which I noticed was that students didn't kind of ask questions. Why must I do this? Why must I do that? It was just you do what you were told, and the sort of the relationship and the respect that you had with your instructor was a much stronger one. That's, I think, that certainly I see with my students today. Where you kind of have to sometimes put boundaries because we're buddies. We're not buddies. You have to kind of push for that boundary, whereas in the past you didn't have to. People would just respect that. I remember doing push-ups for being late. Like if I ask my students, in fact, when I moved from Mozambique to South Africa, I still applied those methods. It didn't work in South Africa.
Oh, okay.
Come back. Oh, I have to do push-ups because I'm late. But my parents drove me, and it's actually not my fault. Why must I do push-ups? It's crazy.
Yeah. So you are some of the people that you trained with, in those early days in Mozambique, are they still around and are, training partners at this point, or at least, contemporaries?
Some of them are not around. Some of them, I've got mainly 2, that that go back to the beginnings when I also started, and that's and one of them is Master Temporary. He's still around, and then other people, they just other went to other styles, or or they stopped doing it, and they're not active anymore, which is a pity. But some of them we still train together in other styles or other martial arts, but not in Tang Soo Do. I think one of my best training partners from long time is Master Temporary, and we continue to to train together to this day, which is great to have that kind of relationship.
Yeah, he's awesome. I remember I competed against him at Worlds one year, and it was a really good match. He beat me 1-0. And then I think it wasn't maybe not, oh, it was the next Worlds. He came and he had an injury to his leg.
Yes.
And he still competed. And he did, I watched him do a form, and then afterwards I was like, man, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'd already got everything, and I still paid. So I came, and then he even sparred too. And then I saw him at Master's Clinic, and him and I were partners. And yeah, just a great training partner, great attitude, like that never quit attitude. It really stuck with me as far as he goes. So
and you can see that's a kind of it's kind of common to have in Region 14, black belts or students, to have that kind of attitude. I think we've created that over the years, and most of them still have that attitude, which I think is something, at least to me, quite special about Region 14, that I want us not to give that up, keep going.
yeah, there's no question that I would agree with that. In seeing the competitors that come from Region 14, I mentioned Master Temporario, Evandro, Michael Lee. Guys, those are some of the guys that come to mind. It's just like you watch them compete, and they just compete with heart. And when it comes to some people, they're at a different level as far as intensity and technique. So, yeah, whatever you're doing, keep it up.
Yeah, we'll just we're just keeping up what's we just keep doing what we were taught to do, and a lot of it came from Grandmaster Shin, because we were lucky enough that I watched the interview with Master Amarima, and I think she explained a little bit of the background of how Tang Soo Do emerged in Africa, and with late Master Adrian Blecknot in South Africa, who was my instructor's instructor, and he passed away. And then all these students kind of went and opened different schools. And my instructor went to Mozambique and opened a school there. But Grandmaster Shin took a special interest in our region, so he would travel every year. So we were lucky to have him every year, in our region. And I think that was sort of, the special thing that we had, that's kind of, not that made us different, but it made us appreciate and train harder, because here's this man that is from Korea, the original, the original guy who actually coming here and training us. So we really appreciated that, because without that, we were just another blob in this world, and we don't get to do a lot of stuff that other countries do.
Yeah, it's great. In talking to so many people, what is just amazing is so many people share that same story about how they worked with him, trained with him, and how special he made everyone feel.
Yeah,
I feel like for our association, it's completely it's unique, right? It's unique in that way. I could be wrong. It's the only one I've ever been a part of, but I feel like we have that, to our advantage of, just having a leader that set something up for us to last for however long.
yeah.
Do you have any particular stories of him that come to mind?
Yeah, I've got a few, and I think one interesting story that I think a lot of people don't know, even the ones close to me, is that when I was a red belt, it was the first time that I attended a international championship. I went with my instructor to Wales, and we participated in the European championship there. And that was the first time that or one of the first times that I actually got to travel for Tang Soo Do. You know, we would travel from Mozambique to South Africa to attend championships, but not internationally. And then when we arrived there, we kind of were a little bit lost. You know, we flew to London, and then from London took a bus to Wales, and we got there and was just on time. There was some kind of, at the time I didn't really know, it was some kind of masters dinner celebration, etc. And everybody was wearing the Tang Soo Do suit, which I don't have because I was just a red belt. And we couldn't get to our hotel yet. So my instructor then went to speak to Grandmaster to say, well, you know, I've got my student here with me and I can't just abandon him. Can he come to the dinner? So I arrive in this dinner and the tables are set in a U shape, and there's no space for me because all the chairs are counted. So so somebody takes a chair and puts right in front of Grandmaster Shin's table. And I'm not wearing a suit or anything, and I feel so awkward. And I go and I bow and I sit down, and the dinner is going and people are talking. I'm just quiet. I don't know what's going on there. And Grandmaster Shin is just looking at me all this time, like throughout the whole dinner. Every time we make eye contact, I kind of look away because I don't know how to act. You know, it's like really that feeling that I don't belong here. So I'll just try and be, you know, the most invisible person. You know, so that was a really, really awkward. But at the same time, you know, I kind of think that I had a peek of the future of what can hold for me, and that was priceless, you know, because that memory stayed with me as something that it was a goal for me. Like one day I want to be one of those guys wearing that suit in this environment, you know. And I think that also gave me a drive, you know. So sometimes people get given something that you know they don't deserve, and then, you know, some people take it for granted. I think for me it was more like a, you know, like fuel, you know.
No, it's great. Yeah, to think about. I'm assuming you're probably a teenager at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can't imagine the pressure. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
You put right in front of him, and I'm sure he probably would have talked to you, and you know, he was more than happy to have you be a part of it. But I could just imagine myself in that position and how stressful it would be.
Yeah. And I mean, although he came to Region 14 and every year, you know, those days, they're in the late 90s, you know, early 2000s, until about, I think, 2014, I think 2013, 2014, I think he stopped coming, you know, so much. And he would always come with you know, accompanied by another master, you know, so we would train with that master, which was always great. But there was one year, and I can't really recall if it was about 2003 or 2004, one of those years, where he actually came alone, and we did a training session in a park. It was also quite memorable because it was the first time that we actually trained with him directly, where he would actually do a technique and we would imitate. And I remember thinking, you know, just he had a sort of a kind of a nice hairstyle, but every time you like do a technique, the hair will kind of like just flop around. And it was like, it was a sudden move, you know, it was just so precise and quick, you know. And we would training the knife for him. And I tried to give him one knife, and he says, no, I don't need it. So he picked up a leaf on the floor, a dry leaf, and he used that as a knife. So doing extremely fast movements, but actually never crumbling, the dry leaf, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Those kinds of memories, just stay with you,
Yeah, that's great. I don't remember what year it was, but my instructor, Master Godwin, visited, I think I don't remember, maybe it was with Grandmaster Strong or Grandmaster Bodwin at some point.
Correct. Yeah. They were there. This was more recent. I think
Yeah.
they were there in, I want to say 2015 or 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they were there, and it was also really amazing. I mean, I always looked up to Master Godwin. I think he's just an extreme kind person and really good technician. We're lucky to have him in our association. And we were very happy that he came there, and we did a bit of Hapkido with him, which is something I always enjoyed. Yeah. It was really great. Then actually, Grandmaster Strong came to Mozambique the first time, I think, was in 2001, because I tested for black belt in 2001, and he was actually, in my panel. It was three of us. Yeah, two of my colleagues were going to Choranbo, and I was going to first dan. And it was Grandmaster Strong who was there at the table. And it was also really, really an amazing test. And I still remember when he asked us to do a board breaking using Pyong Kwan Su. And I thought, what? He must be joking. Prepare my fingers for this.
How'd it go?
Well, we were successful, but
Yeah.
I think we couldn't move our hands after that.
Yeah, right. It's funny. I just had a video pop up on my memories on Facebook from my pre-test for Samdan, and it was a 3-board punch, just a reverse punch. And I just remember it was always a 3-board chop, and then Master Godwin changed it on us. And I just remember in my head going, I'm only hitting this once. And then I just remember my hand being so sore afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, good memories.
Yeah, right. You mentioned, what was it, 2004 you moved to Cape Town?
2004, yes, sir.
What did you do? Did you start your own dojang at that point? Were there people there to train with? How was that transition from Mozambique?
It was actually a really hard time for me, because I came to Cape Town and there was no Tang Sudo clubs in Cape Town. In general, there's more Japanese styles and Chinese styles and not a lot of Korean styles. So, and that's still the case now. And I went there, I moved there to study. So I went to university there. I started university in Mozambique, but I thought I wanted to do something a bit different. So I went to Cape Town. I came to Cape Town, and so I didn't have much time or money, being a student. So I started classes on a local church hall, and that's how I got started, just teaching, and then what also made it difficult was that, culturally people were different, and I was coming with that mentality of, train hard and, be hard and all of that. And so it happened that Master Gordon would travel to South Africa on a regular basis to come in and work. And so he visited me a couple of times, and I always used to say to him, I don't know, I don't know what to do, but I keep losing students. Students join in and then they quit, and they join in and they quit. And he looked at me and said, oh, yeah, so what do you think you're doing wrong? I said, well, I think I'm a bit too hard on them. But that's the way martial arts is. And he said to me, well, let me ask you a question. Would you rather have 10 students and those 10 students are really good, but you only have 10? Or do you want to have 50 students in which 10 of them are good? You still have the same 10 good students, but you actually involving more people and making a difference in more people's lives. And that kind of, stuck with me since then. And I kind of adjusted my behavior or my teaching methods in order to accommodate different people. Not everybody needed to fall within the same mold, you know what I mean? And I think that's when things started shifting. I still remember that, I think it was really good advice. He was also very, very helpful in South Africa, with dealing with all the different problems we had and in South Africa, because he was traveling a lot here. Mm-hmm. So we really appreciate, all the time and effort that he put in us.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's here in Region 8 with us, and he's just such a fountain of wisdom. And yeah, every time I get a chance to talk with him or, even listen to him be an MC, and he always drops little bits of information. And I love that conversation. And I've had that. Master Godwin has said that same thing to people all of the time. And it really is true, right? Because you can have those people and you can still cater to them, but the people that need self-confidence, need respect, need self-control. Sometimes if you bump them out of rapport, they're not going to get to the point where they see the benefit.
Yeah.
And I personally, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, not all students you have are actually going to turn out to be black belts and then carry on to become masters. But that doesn't mean that martial arts can't be good for them, can't actually, give them what they need at a certain stage of their lives, regardless if they get to black belt or not. So I think, I started accommodating those kinds of students as well, which I never thought about it in that way, because I wanted all my students to be well, to do well and to get to black belt. That's not the case.
Yeah. Before you moved to Cape Town, were you teaching it at any capacity in Mozambique?
Yeah, so I was doing, for a while, I was teaching at my instructor's studio. And then just before I left, I opened my own studio in Mozambique for a short period. And then I moved here. And I think Master Temporario took over that for a short period of time, and then he ended up closing, and then he ended up, opening as his own, opening his own club, later on. I did some teaching. I did do some teaching there before I moved.
And so you still have your own dojo now?
Correct, sir.
Yeah. What motivates you now, almost 20 years? Probably kind of crazy to think about that. 20 years going on, being in Cape Town. What motivates you to still continue to teach and train? Or let's start with teach.
Yeah. Well, I think, I'm in a privileged position where I've got a job that is not martial arts. So I don't do martial arts full time, and I don't rely on martial arts, to have an income. So what I make out of martial arts, I use it either for, traveling or to help my students, because some of them can't pay for classes and stuff like that. So, and that's the part that I really enjoy about martial arts, as a kind of a way of giving back, a sense of duty, a sense of that I'm not doing it for myself or to make money, but I'm doing it because I believe that, I can make a difference in people's minds, in people's lives, So I've got parents that join in with their kids. And I really love that, because I think that's when I think martial arts is at its best in terms of its influence, because it's kind of influencing both the younger generation and the older generation, and they can do it together, so that's the beauty of it, so I really enjoy the teaching and enjoy feeding off energy of the students as well to keep going. I think that's quite essential for me. And I do have a lot of students who, well, I do come across, I don't have a lot of students like that now, but I do come across with students who are really passionate, but they can't afford classes. That happens a lot in South Africa and Mozambique, in Africa in general. And, but, in a way, your reward is the commitment that they bring, to the class and to your studio. And I think for me, that's still, an important value.
Yeah, absolutely. If someone is gifted that opportunity to train, I feel like sometimes, not all the time, but a lot of the times they put even more of their energy and their passion into it, because they know that they're afforded that opportunity that they necessarily weren't able to afford.
Yeah. The other side of it, I think, is that, it is through teaching that you develop yourself, and it's always amazing how you change your thinking, or you change, or you even go through a process of learning things yourself as you're explaining to your students, things that maybe you never thought about it before. And I really enjoy that, because it feels like I'm constantly growing, constantly learning new things. And I think teaching is definitely essential for you to progress from black belt. If you're not doing teaching, I think there's a component there that you're kind of losing, that you're not taking advantage of that. And my instructor always said to you, because when I moved here, it was difficult. I had nobody to train, to train with, and it would be hard sometimes to keep yourself motivated if you don't have your peers, with you. And I always remember what he said was that, when you demonstrate one technique, do it in such a way, you put so much energy and so much power that technique equals 10 techniques of your students. So if you always do that, then you're going to keep training no matter what, and that's something that I always try to do. When I demonstrate techniques, I try to put 110% into them, so that for me, it's a way of keeping training as well. I don't believe in the thing of just training by talking or not exemplifying. I believe that whatever I'm asking my students to do, I should be able still to do it, And that's a tricky part. And I think Master Khan talks about that as well a lot. He says, don't ask your students to do something if you can't do it yourself, And I think that pushes you, because if you want your students to do better and to be better, then you need to keep going yourself.
I 100% agree with that. And I've always prescribed to that thought as well, where I always strive to do it just as hard, if not harder. I want my students to try to live up to my standard, whatever that might be. I mentioned earlier, I tore my ACL, so haven't been able to demonstrate as much or as effective as I want to. So that's been a real struggle for me, because if I want someone to do a 360 roundhouse kick, I'm going to show them how to do it. So, getting around that and trying to figure out how to have someone else show it or explain it. I feel like that's kind of made me a better instructor. And you were talking about teaching and it making you a better martial artist. I agree with that too. And I don't know how you feel, but I haven't competed, as far as World Tungsten goes since 2014. I feel like I would be such a better competitor now, even though I'm older. just based on all the stuff that I've learned or teached or,
Yeah.
kind of figured out since then.
It's such a, it's such an unfair thing about life, because as you grow older, your physical capabilities go down,
Right.
or your understanding of things goes up. So, it's like almost like life, playing a trick on you, saying, well, you'll get a lot better on things, but you won't be able to do them, as well as you used to.
Although we have, we have guys like Bukwanjan M. Khan, Grandmaster Strong that show us that if you want to, you can continue to train no matter how old you are.
That's true. And there's such, a blessing for our association, to have those masters and grandmasters and, and more, but yeah, I mean, they're really inspiring people. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree with you.
Have you had the opportunity to train much with Master Khan, Bukwanjan Khan or Khan?
So not a lot of opportunities, but I always like to be around him and do things around him, and he always has something to say, something to point out, which I really enjoy. Last year, when we were, during that time when we are practicing before we go to our test at Master's Clinic, Master Miguel Soto and I, we were just going over stuff, over forms and over techniques and stuff like that. And Bukwanjan Khan is sitting on the side and he's just looking at us and he's just correcting. And I see that some people might not enjoy that because, of the stress, or like, I don't need to change the way I'm doing things because I'm going to go into my test right now. But we both took that as such an opportunity to learn from him on the side, and it's absolutely amazing. He always has like a different view or a different way of doing things that makes absolute sense, and I learn a lot that way, So when we go to Master's Clinic, it's such a financial effort, for us, that I at least try to make the best, that I can, from that short time with all these, we call them powerhouses of the association.
Well, not just financial. I remember talking to you guys, and it's quite a trip to get to Alabama for you.
Yeah. It's many hours. Yeah. I think the longest it took me once was 32 hours. It was the cheapest flight I took. And it went via Dubai, and I had to wait there, and then Europe, and then wait another layover, and then somewhere in the US, another layover, and then from there to, to Alabama. It was just, I was completely defeated by the time I got there. And I said to myself, never again.
It wasn't worth the money you saved.
It's not worth it, because your body takes quite a beat.
Yeah, on top of that, it's whatever 4 or 5 hour time difference there. And then you're expected to then push yourself physically and mentally.
Yeah, no, it's hard work, yeah. But it's amazing. I mean, I if I could, I do it every year, and some years, unfortunately, I can't afford to do it.
It speaks volumes to your dedication to put that on. You're going to save up, and then the money that you save up goes towards your training to travel to Alabama. And I'm sure your students and your region appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I must mention that the support of my family is amazing in terms of that, because this could be money that we use for family vacations or for other means that benefits everybody, but I'm selfish in using that for myself, and they absolutely agree and and support me on that. So I'm really grateful that I have a family that supports me that way.
Do you have any children?
I do too. I've got a 15-year-old and I've got an 11-year-old.
Okay. I have a 14 and 11-year-old, so I'm right there with you. I have two girls.
Great. Yeah. My 11 is a Chodanbo, so she will hopefully, if everything goes well, she'll be tested in our regional championship in October. Grandmaster Strong and Master Fattori will be there. So it will be a really exciting time for Region 14. We haven't had an event since 2019, which was the last one we had in Botswana. Oh, just to go, to go back to your question about the rewards of being a teacher. My first black belt that I formed when I moved to South Africa is Mr. Lebogang Ramhago, who was from Botswana and was studying in Cape Town. And then he went back to Botswana and he opened his school there. So, I mean, that to me also, speaks volumes about, the rewards of being a teacher, just seeing another country, come to fruition, starting Tamsilu on another country. And it's thanks to your student who you met in a completely different part of the world, and he just took that and it went to develop, by himself. And I think and nowadays Botswana is doing very well, and that's why we hosted the 2019 Region 14 Championship there. And Grandmaster Borden was there. It was the last time that we saw him and we were with him.
Well, good luck on the championships. So you're the regional director of Region 14. So this is your first event, right? Your first major championship?
Correct.
How's it going so far? No pressure, yeah.
It's going well. I think we started preparations and I think it's going well. It's a little bit difficult because Mozambique is hosting it, and I have full trust and confidence that Master Temporary as a country director is going to do a very good job there. But it's a bit difficult for me to kind of not being there and not help. I help out, from a distance, from having meetings, from asking questions, making sure things are getting done. But I'm going to go there in June next year, so I'm looking forward to sitting down with all of them in Mozambique and talk about their preparations for the championship. You must join us. You must come. You will enjoy it.
I would love to. Our regional tournament is also in October as well.
Oh yes, correct.
So, and I'm actually the assistant regional director, so I'm not sure if I can miss that one. I would love to come to visit you guys at some point. I love coming to different places and training with the brothers and sisters of Tong Sudao. You mentioned being that example for your students and that person that if you do something, if you want them to do something, you expect yourself to do that as well. Do you feel that, I don't know if it's pressure, but you feel that same way when it comes to being the regional director and trying to motivate the instructors of Region 14 and the students, the people that depend on you to host events like this and put events like this together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned, it was actually from Master Bordwin, from Grandmaster Bordwin presentation about leadership. I don't know. I'm sure you've seen that one. I think he showed it a couple of times in different events, and then somebody put a video, I think, together of those kinds of things, and I always remember him, talking about leadership qualities, and Master Godwin also when he came to Mozambique, he also made a presentation on that, and and that exercise of putting the physical skills and the non-physical skills next to each other, and talk about what are the different leadership skills required to be a good leader. And you slowly see that non-physical skills are the qualities that are non-physical are more than the physical ones. So that's what I think I am trying to achieve with Region 14, is trying to show to everybody, not that I have all the answers, but try to sort of, to show that there are other skills that we need as masters, as black belts, as instructors, that are non-physical, and the physical skills will only take you so far, and you have to have these other qualities as well. And those should be there when you organize events, when you lead other people, when you try to work together with other people. And I think so far, I think it's going very well. And I think, and I don't sort of, in the past, we've had sort of leaders that like tell you what to do and push you and stuff like that. And I think that's the wrong approach, especially in today's world. You kind of have to, again, lead by example, and also, or try to convince them that that's the right thing to do and the right way to proceed, Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's maybe a bit early to speak, but let's see how things develop in Region 14.
Well, I think they're in good hands, sir.
Thank you.
Outside of Tong Sudo, or do you have any other martial arts that you've trained in or currently train in?
So for a while, when I moved to Cape Town, I trained a little bit with a friend in the art of Sistema, the Russian martial arts. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was quite interesting. I think it was very different, and I really enjoyed, some of the breathing exercises that they have, and the sort of the body, the word mutilation comes to mind, but that's not quite what we did.
They move in a very different manner.
Yeah,
They're very fluid and
yeah. And there's a lot of conditioning also, and then your attacks are kind of like relaxed, so all your strikes are kind of relaxed, but actually achieves quite a lot of power. So that was quite interesting. I did a little bit of that, and then and then I got what I wanted from it, and then I met a Korean instructor of Haidong Gumdu, and then I started doing Haidong Gumdu. I asked my instructor at the time permission to join them, and then in 2018 I went to Argentina to the master's clinic there, and then I spoke to Kwanjanim Border and Kwanjanim Strong, and I asked their permission as well, and they gave me that permission, and then I joined that, and I started training Haidong Gumdu, and I'm still involved now.
Do you offer any classes on that, or is that just training for yourself?
No, I do offer classes of Haidong Gumdu as well. I separate things that it's not connected to Tang Soo Do. It's a kind of like a completely different class, completely different association. Yeah, really. Yeah.
How do you feel your obviously it's a sword-based style. Mm-hmm. How do you feel your training in general? How's the connection between that and Tang Soo Do? Do you find any things that translate over into your Tang Soo Do training from Haidong Gumdu?
Yeah, I think there any martial arts that you study, I think if you understand one system well enough, then everything else is just a kind of a different approach to something that you're already doing, you know. And I think we had already our sword forms. But I think what I found in Hairungumdu was the basics of the sword that you can also come back to our Tangsudu sword forms. And if you apply the basics, you know, and especially the kind of the training in Kimachase with the sword, you know, something that at least I never did as a starting point for the sword. We kind of jumped immediately into a form without actually, but you know, when we do our kicks and punches, we don't jump straight into those. We actually first learn the basics in Kimachase, right, in horse riding style, and then from there, then you jump to the other. So I think I found that kind of skills was important, and in understanding, for example, you know, we do cutting exercises, how to actually properly cut, and how to do a perfect sword line. You know, those are really amazing skills that once you start training in that way, then I think you start understanding better the sword, and you start understanding our sword forms as well in a better way, you know. So yeah, it's really complementary, you know. I think you go out, you learn something, and then you can't help it. You always bring to your Tangsudo, because that's, you know, that's what's in your heart, and then it doesn't change your Tangsudo, but it makes your understanding a lot better. That's what I find.
It enhances it. That's
exactly.
how I think. And I know from talking to other people, Grandmaster Shim was always a big proponent of people going out and getting information and bringing it back and sharing and integrating it into their training if it was something that fit. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Starting to wind up here, and again, I appreciate your time talking. Is there anything in particular that we haven't talked about that you wanted to touch base on?
Sure, that's a tricky question.
Well, I'll base it this way. So,
Yeah.
do you have any goals for the rest of 2023, either personally in the martial arts, or as a region, or as an instructor? Anything that you're working towards?
Yeah, at the moment, I think our regional event is on the top of that list, you know. So much that I actually put my personal goals kind of, you know, sort of, you know, they come second. You know, right. I think that for me is at the top of the priorities. I really want our event to be great, and I kind of you know, I also want to make sure that we grow, you know, from this event into other events, and you know, even one day, who knows, a master's clinic in Africa, you know. So that's a kind of a long-term goal that I have. Yeah, and then I need to finish my 5th and thesis this year, so that's also another thing that is a kind of a goal of mine. You know, I need
just a small thing to work on. You fit in.
Just a small thing I work on every Mondays and Fridays evenings.
20,000 words? It's nothing, right?
Yeah, it wasn't nothing when I was at university, yes, but nowadays it seems
right. Like... that was quite a few years ago, right?
Yeah. And I'm kind of and I'm kind of a bit of a perfectionist, so I'm never happy with anything. So I rather put it away than just say, okay, it's done and I'll send it out. No, like, put it away, wait a bit of time, and then I look at it again, and maybe some new ideas will come through. Yeah, I think those are the main things at the moment.
Well, again, I want to thank you for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time out to chat. I got some great information, and I appreciate you sharing the stories of your martial arts journey. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you at Masters Clinics next year, sir. We'll finish that 5th down journey together.
Yes, sir. Definitely. We have to. That's a 20. 2024 goal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But no, thanks for inviting me and thanks for having me. And I'm really honored that you chose to ask those questions, because there's a lot of other masters there that that have a lot of more interesting stories. So I hope I didn't bore the people that are gonna watch this.
It's funny. I don't know if you watch Master Gordon, as you know, is one of the most interesting men and influential masters in our group. And I remember reaching out to him, and he goes, "Well, I'm kind of boring. I don't know if I have that many stories to share." And it's like, if you're boring, what am I? So, no, absolutely. Well, thank you again, sir. And I will talk to you soon. Talk soon.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.